So we could already say a Guten Erev Shabbos. We could already say a Guten Rosh Chodesh as a very special Chodesh, Chodesh Sivan, and we are sponsored by A.B. Spry, who sponsored this entire amazing Masechta in honor of his children. He should have nachas from all of them. And by Michal Avram, whose beautiful vart was celebrated tonight here, Mazel Tov Michal, and what did you say? Aaron, are you talking to me?
No, I'm sorry, Rabbi. No, I'm sorry.
We are holding by the new Mishnah on Daf Tzadik Ches Amud Beis, new Mishnah Tzadik Ches Amud Beis, as we welcome in Mel Zachter, Irving Fishbaum, Aaron Swade, Dr. Guy, Mark Frankel, Marshall Castle, Shimon Klein, Michael, and Richard. It's great to see you. Wonderful, Richard Rosenzweig, and Saba, Moshe Lehman, Ilya Shutman, A. Barbach, Rabbi Kranz, Naftali Javelin, Shelley Zeitlin, Yitzi Fuchs. Here in Shul we have Ruvain Shanet, we have Michal Avram, we have Rich Leonard, we have Gedalia Engel, and Berish Gesserman. So the Mishnah says as follows. Hashoyel es hapora, if let's say Marshall borrows my cow, v'shilchaloi, and I send it to him biyad b'nai, in the hand of my son, biyad avdai, in the hand of my servant, biyad shluchai, in the hand of my agent. Or biyad b'nai, I hand it over to Marshall's son. Biyad avdai, I hand it over to Marshall's servant. Biyad shluchai shel shayel. Or I hand it over to Marshall's agent. Umeisa, and it dies, potter, because the key is Marshall did not say, send it to me. Marshall did not say, give it to my shliach, give it to my son. That's the next case in the Mishnah. Amalei Hashayel, if however Marshall tells me, shilchali biyad b'ni, send it to me by the hands of my son, biyad avdi, by my servant, biyad shluchi, by my agent, or biyad bincha, or by your son, biyad avdecha, your servant, biyad shluchacha, oisha amalei hamashil, or if, let's say, I tell Marshall, listen here, Hareini, I tell Marshall, Hareini, Marshall, you should know I'm sending it. Mishalchalacha biyad b'ni, biyad avdi, biyad shluchi. I'm sending it to you in the hands of my son, the hands of my servant, the hands of my agent. Or biyad bincha, the hand of your son, biyad avdecha, biyad shluchacha. V'amalei hashayel, and Marshall acquiesces, and he says, shlach, send it. So then, v'shilcha, when I send it, umeisa, then chayiv. Why? Because then Marshall took responsibility. And the reverse is true, v'chein b'shoshe machzira. The same thing is true and when he returns it to me. If he returns it to me and he sends it with my son or my eved or my shliach, he's still responsible. But if I say, Marshall, send it back with my son, or send it back with your son, then he's not responsible anymore. So the reverse is true on the return trip. So now the Gemara asks, one case is troubling the Gemara. It's troubling the Gemara where the Gemara says that in the event that Marshall says that I should send it with my eved, the Gemara says that then Marshall is responsible. But the question is, why should Marshall be responsible? Yad eved ki yad rabbi. The hand of the eved is like the hands of the master. And therefore it should be considered like it's still by me until it gets to Marshall. Why, if Marshall says that I should send it with my Eved, why is then Marshall responsible if it dies? So asks the Gemara, Biyad Avdai, if I send it with my servant, and he said send it, Chayiv, Marshall is Chayiv. Why? Yad Eved ki Yad Rabbi. The hand of an Eved is like the hand of his master. So it's as if it was still by me. Shmuel, so Shmuel says, no, it's talking about an Eved Ivri. It's talking about a Hebrew slave. A Hebrew slave is not like the master, because the Hebrew slave is his own person. It's not Gufei Koni. The Loi Koni like Gufei. His body is not acquired by me. So we don't say Yad Eved ki Yad Rabbi. Rav says, no, Afilu Teime be'Eved Kanani. It could even be an Eved Kanani. But, as this is a very interesting answer that the Gemara gives, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. As we welcome in Ruvain Pollack joining us, the Gemara says, in 3 lines from the top, Ruvain, of Daf Tzadik Tes Amud Aleph, Rav Amar Afilu Teime be'Eved Kanani. It could be talking about that Marshall said, Rabbi Weiss, send it with your Eved Kanani. But what Marshall was saying is hit it with a stick and send it to me. And as soon as it leaves my courtyard, Marshall acquires responsibility for it. Rav Amar Afilu Teime be'Eved Kanani nasa ka'imele hikisha b'makal, hit it with a stick v'hitavai, and it will come to me. So as soon as it leaves his chotzer, it's my responsibility, even if it left by itself. Now, the Gemara says, Meisvei, we have a stira to our Mishnah. In a Braisa it says, Hashoya lapara, if Marshall borrows my cow, Vishilchaloi biyad b'noi biyad shluchai, if I send it to him with my son, or with my agent, chayiv. And it's talking about where he commissioned me. He said, send it with your son or with your agent, chayiv. Biyad avdai potter. But if he sends it if I send it to him with my servant, potter. But in our Mishnah it says if I send it with my servant, I'm chayiv. So Bishlam Shmuel, there's no difficulty. Masnisen be'Eved Ivri. Our Mishnah that says that Marshall is chayiv, it's talking about an Eved Ivri whose guf is not koni. The Braisa is talking about an Eved Kanani. And since Yad Eved ki Yad Rabbi, it's like it never left yet my Rishus, and that's why Marshall is not chayiv. El Rav Kasha, but according to Rav it's difficult. So now the Gemara amends what we thought was the answer over here. Now the Gemara amends it. As we welcome in Shalom Fogel, in Shalom we're holding 8 lines from the top of Daf Tzadik Tes Amud Aleph. Now the Gemara amends the answer, and it says it's as if Marshall said, hit it with a stick and send it to me. So that means he accepts responsibility as soon as it leaves the house, my house. It's only if he says it. So in our Mishnah, it's talking about where he actually said that. In the Braisa, he didn't say it. So the Gemara says, Amalach Rav, leitema nasa ka'amalei. It's as if he said it. Ela ema ba'amalei, only in the instance where he says, Hikisha b'makal, hit it with a stick v'itavai, and it'll come to me, and I accept the responsibility as soon as it walks out from your door. De'emar, Hashileni parascha, Marshall says, lend me your cow, v'amalei biyad me. And I say to him, in whose hand should I send it to? V'amalei hikisha b'makal, hit it with a stick v'tavai. So that's a raya that you see that once he says that, he accepts responsibility. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Avo, Amar Rav, Kevin Shiyotz, Mishus Mashal, once it leaves my house or my courtyard, Umeisa Chayev. So says the Gemara, name a Messiah. Let's bring a proof. We learned Tishileni Paroscha, lend me your cow. V'amalei biyad me, and I said to him, whose hand? V'amalei kisha b'makel, hit it with a stick v'itava. Kevin sheyotzim rishus mashal amesa. Once it leaves the rishus of the mashal and dies, chayev. So that's a raya to Rav. Rav Ashi, no. Over there it's talking about where it's obvious that as soon as it leaves the house, Marshall's going to be responsible, because it's talking about where my courtyard is within Marshall's courtyard. So as soon as I hit it with a stick, it's going to go automatically into Marshall's courtyard. So obviously there it's different. Rav Ashi, the other way around. Marshall's courtyard is within my courtyard. Marshall's courtyard is within my courtyard. So as soon as I hit it with a stick, it's going to automatically be in Marshall's property. So the Gemara says, then of course he's chayiv. What's the chiddush? Says the Gemara, the chiddush is that my courtyard has a lot of my courtyard is like a maze. I have a courtyard. I have 16 acres, and it's going in every direction. So it's not clear that the animal will right away come to him. It might get lost in my property. So maybe we'll say Marshall wasn't samich das to accept responsibility. Like tzvich diike gaz yosa. There's a lot of crevices. There's a lot of nooks and crannies. Now the same aloi samcha daite. Dilma kaima hasan. It might get lost in my own property. V'lo isa v'lo asya azil. It's not going to come. So maybe he doesn't accept responsibility. Kamashman the samcha daite. He says, hit it with the stick and it'll come into my property. I'll be responsible.
Hit the evet and come to him. Is that or he said it a little differently?
What do you say?
He says to the he says hit the evet to come to me. Is that the way?
No, not hit the evet. Hit the animal.
Right, but we're with an evet. We're talking about an evet.
No, but that's the point. He's not making it contingent on the evet. He said that as soon as it leaves the property with the evet or without the evet, I'm accepting responsibility.
Okay.
Now, here the Gemara goes into an interesting discussion. And, here, Dr. Block, Amar Avuna, Hashoyel karda mechaveiroi. Dr. Block borrows an axe from me. Buckaboy, as soon as he chops it, he goes out into his backyard and chops a piece of wood for his fireplace. Kanu. Loi buckaboy, if he doesn't chop with it, loi kanu. So the Gemara says, in regard to what? That he should be responsible for it? Lamai, ilay maloinsin. Well, why is it any different than a cow? We see that Marshall became responsible to a cow even before it got to his house. He definitely is responsible before he used it. Ma'ishna para the mishah sheila. It's from the time of the borrowing, not from the time of the use. The thing is, I said that I'm going to lend it to Dr. Block for 30 days. And now I want it back out. I want it back. And, Dr. Block says, what do you mean you want it back? I'm relying on you. And all the stores are closed, I need that axe, what do you mean you want it back? So the Gemara says, so it depends if he used it or not. El l'chazara. Whether I could demand that he returns it to me. Bakabai, once he chops with it, like matzi adabe, I can't ask for it back. Matzi adabe mashal, I can't ask for it back. If he didn't chop with it, matzi mashal adabe, I could ask for it back. And the Gemara says, upligi de rabami. And this is in opposition to Rav Ami. The Amar Rav Ami is very interesting. Let's say I have an axe of hektish, and I give it as a loan to Richard. So Amashal Kardim Shal Hektish, if I give Richard a loan of an axe of hektish, Mo'al Lefi Toivus Hanoshabai, I commit trespass according to the value of the benefit I get that I did Richard a favor. People like to do people favors, and I'll pay for the goodwill that I did Richard a favor. So therefore, I took that goodwill, so to speak, away from Hektish. I took that value away from Hektish, and the din is, once you're ma'al in an item of Hektish, it goes out l'chulin. So now it went out l'chulin. Now when Richard chops with it, he doesn't commit milah, because it already went out l'chulin. V'chaveiroi, and Richard is mutal v'akeh by l'chatchila. He could chop with it in the first instance because it's not hektish anymore. But wait a second. If we hold like the first teaching, right? If we hold like Rav Huna, then before Richard chops with it, he doesn't acquire it, and therefore I could get it back. And since I could get it back, I wasn't mol yet from Hegdish. V'iloi kanu, if Richard didn't acquire it, am I mol? Why could Richard use it in the first instance? Nahadre, I could recall it back. And then Richard didn't acquire it. And there would be no me'ila. So therefore we see that Rav Ami argues on Rav Huna. And also plig the Rabbi Lazar. He also argues on Rabbi Lazar. Dama Rabbi Lazar, kiderach shetiknu meshicha b'lekuchais. Just like there's a din that when you buy something, let's say an animal or a heavy bag, you acquire it by pulling it. Kak tiknu meshicha b'shaimim. So also they made meshicha by shaimim, that the person, if it's a heavy axe, if it's a light axe, then Dr. Black would acquire with a hagva, with picking it up. But if it's more heavy, so he acquires it by pulling it, but he doesn't have to chop with it. As soon as he pulls it, he acquires it. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned likewise, Keshem shetiknu meshicha b'lekuchais, just like we enacted meshicha by a buyer, kach tiknu meshicha b'shayim. Ukeshem, we're already turning a page. You know, this is the last page of 2 digits. We're going into 3 digits on Matzah Shabbos. Really impressive. 3 digits Matzah Shabbos. Ukeshem shekarka niknas bekesef ubishtar b'chazaka. This is halacha. We learn all over and over again in Shas that real estate is acquired with money. It's acquired if the seller gives me a deed of sale, and it's acquired with chazaka, like we learned earlier this week, when you make an improvement. If you put on a lock on the property, you make a fence, you make an opening in the property. So kach schiris, so also a rental is nikna bekesef or b'shtar b'chazaka. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Schira mayavidite. What are you talking about? A rental. A rental, if it's a movable, it's not acquired with a shtar. It's not even acquired with kesef. You have to do mashicha. Rav Chisda, we're talking about schiras karka. Rental of karka is also acquired with these 3 kinyanim. Now, 4 lines from the top of that Tzadik Tesam and Beis, I just want to point out a few things before we go further. Number 1 is that probably Monday, I have a feeling it's going to be Monday, we're going to try to, Tuesday is Erev Yom Tov, right? So Monday night, we will shoot to do 2 blot. That's the thing, so that we shouldn't have to do 3 blot on Matzah Shavuos. So that will be the plan. Tonight we're going to have a chok, and then I plan to have another chok, a small chok, which is it's a Friday chok. It's 5 disciplines instead of 8. I plan to have that Sunday, which we will have a siyum. We will finish siyum Sefer Shemais in the chok. It's Hashem on Sunday. That's a very big siyum. But yeah, right. That deserves more than a franc.
Beans too.
That deserves a nice, good steak on a bone. But anyway, I did today. This is not for Fairways people, because for Fairways people, you're going to hear it on Yom Tov. It's one of the shiurim I'll give on Yom Tov. But for those that won't be in Fairways, there's a great shiur online. It's on YouTube. It's on Torah Anytime. It's called For the Shabbos Shavuos Table. And it's really a magnificent insight into the origins of David HaMelech. I don't know if Ruvain might remember, but many years ago in the Aguda, I gave a shiur about the origins of David HaMelech. Ruvain, do you remember that shiur about Nitzeves Bas Adoel?
Honestly, no.
No. Okay. It's really an
Long time ago.
Yeah, it is a long time ago. It is a long time ago. I was just mentioning something that I remember saying in the old shul by Mr. Fuhrer. So that's really a long time ago. I think Mr. Ackerman was alive. So, and he's probably gone close to 40 years already. Yeah. But anyway, and I'm not much older than 40, you know that. Yeah.
Just stop counting.
I can't say that. Chemia gets upset because he's 40, so I can't say that anymore. But my oldest son is 40, so I can't say that I'm not older than 40.
The white in your beard gives it away. You're 43.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't have any white in my beard. Check your eyes. It's only gray.
It's the color on my computer. You can never trust colors.
Anyway. Okay. So check out that share, Rabbi Isaiah, on YouTube. And if you never subscribed to YouTube, and if you never became my follower on TorahAnytime.com, you should do that. Okay. Amar Shmuel. Haiman de Gozel Chavitza de Tamrei Mechaveiroi. So here, whenever we say Haiman, you know who that is. Haiman de Gozel Chavitza de Tamrei Mechaveiroi. Marshall stole a cake of dates from me. Now, V'ispa Chamishim Tamrei. In this cake, there's 50 dates pressed together. Now, here's the deal. Agav Hadodi, when they're sold together in a cake, so you get a discount, and it's only 49 zuz. Mizdavin benun naki choda. It's sold for 50 minus 1, for 49. Choda, if it's sold one by one, then mizdavin benun. Then it's sold for 50. So the question is, he's running away, Marshall. I can't believe it. I mean, come here, Marshall. You know, they pay me.
I paid all the dates. I gotta go. Sorry.
So says the Gemara, Lehedyet, if he stole from me, then he only has to pay the price of the cake. Mishalim chamishim naki choda. 49. Lehegdish, if he appropriated it from Hegdish, he has to pay the higher price of per piece, and he has to pay Mishal Chamishim, he has to pay 50, and V'chumshayu, and a fifth. Now, remember, we learned that the fifth of hektish is a fifth milivar. Fifth milivar means a quarter from 50. So a quarter from 50 is like 12 and 12 and a half, right? So that means that he would have to pay 62 and a half. Now, Masha'en came b'mazik. But if he damages hektish, the loy mishalim chumsha. Very interesting. If he damages hektish, he won't have to pay a fifth. Why? Damamar ish ki yoichel kaidish. That's when he has to pay a fifth. Prat lamazik. So the Gemara now asks, is there a difference between hektish and a hedyot? Maskevla Rabbi Voy Barabai lehedyot amay mishalim chamisha naki choda. By a hedyot, by a commoner, why do we pay 49 and not 50? Marshall, I could tell Marshall, what are you shortchanging me? I would have paid it one. I would have sold it one by one and got 50. Why are you only paying me 49? Namely, I should be able to tell Marshall, and I certainly would. I would have sold it piecemeal, and I would have made 50. Rav Huna B'Rei Rabbi Yeshua. So Rabbi Huna B'Rei Rabbi Yeshua says, we see by damage that we're lenient in the evaluation. This is something that we had in Bava Kama, that if Marshall's cow came onto my property and ate my crops, we don't evaluate the value of the crops that he ate. We look at a besa, which is a bigger area, and we say how much was it worth when it was whole, and now how much is it worth with that part missing. And that method of subtraction gives us a lesser amount. So we see that when we're assessing, we're lenient in the assessment, right? Amravun Brady Rabbi Yeshua, Shaman Beisa Ba'isa, we evaluate a Beisa in that field, how much it's worth before the cow ate from it and how much it's worth afterwards, which is a lesser evaluation if we would just evaluate how much is the value of what he ate. So we see that when we make evaluation for a mazik or a thief like Marshall, we're a little lenient. I wouldn't be, but that's what the Gemara says.
Baruch Hashem, I need all the help I can get.
Now, that's true. Now, right on the money, Marshall. Says the Gemara, so this statement was authored by Shmuel. And Shmuel says that hektish is more severe than a commoner. So says the Gemara right away, the Memra, the Sava Shmuel didn't hedyot lav kedin gavoya dami, that the law of a commoner is not the same as hektish. Hektish is more severe. But Tanan, we learned, not 11 oikaira me hektish, if the gizber takes a stone or beam from hektish, loy mal, he's not mal. Nasna l'chaveiroi, if he gave it to somebody else, so he took it out of the rishus of hektish and gave it to Shelley, so who mal, the gizber is mal, the chaveira loy mal. Bana b'seit beisai, if the gizber built it into his house, so far he didn't benefit from it, loy mal, ad sheyidor tachtea b'shava pruta, unless he lives under it for the value of a pruta. Oh, so from this, now this is talking about even in a situation where hektish wasn't using right now this beam or this rack. So v'yosef Rabbi Avo kamei de Rabbi Yochanan v'yosef v'kama mishmei de Shmuel. Rabbi Avo sat before Rabbi Yochanan and he said in the name of Shmuel, Zoi Zoi Meres, from this we could extrapolate that Ador b'chotzer haveiroi shaloi midatoi, that if Mark squats in my bungalow without my knowledge, even though I don't have I don't rent my bungalow, Because here we see that it was considered me'ila, where the gizbar lived under the beam for a shava pruta without the das of hektish, even though hektish wasn't using the beam. So the Gemara says, what do we see from over here? We see that we equate a commoner to hektish, and we don't say that hektish is more than a commoner, because if hektish is more than a commoner, like Shmuel says, that Marshall would have to pay 49 to me, but 50 to a commoner. If it's more, then how could you extrapolate a din from hektish to a din of a commoner? So says Gemara, Hadar bei Shmuel me'ahi. Shmuel retracted from this teaching by hektish. Says Gemara, Mamayde me'ahi hadar bei. Who says he retracted from this teaching of hektish? Dilma me'ha hadar. Maybe he retracted from the teaching that Marshall would have to pay 50 to hektish and 49 to me. No, he retracted from this din by hektish, kiderava. Because he said you cannot extrapolate from hektish to a case where Mark squats without my knowledge. Because the Amarava hektish shaloi midas, using hektish without hektish's knowledge is kehedyet medas dami. It's as if the owner had das. So you can't extrapolate a case of squatting from a case of hektish, because hektish is always considered medas. It's not the same as Mark using my property without my permission. Amarava, a new case. Hani shkuloi. Marshall is a schlepper. Shkuloi is a schlepper, a porter. But in English it's called a schlepper. Right? So Marshall is a schlepper, and he's schlepping my barrels of wine. So Hani Shkuloi de Tavru Chavita de Chamra Lechenva, he broke a barrel of my wine. Now, Biyuma de Shuka, on market day, I could get for that barrel of wine 5 denarii. Big amount. Mizdavna behei. But b'shar yumei, the rest of the season, when it's not market day, mizdavna barba, when there's not a lot of customers, I could only get 4. So, ahadrele b'yuma deshuka, if Marshall could return it to me before market day, so then he only gives me a barrel of wine, and I could get the 5 zuz, right? So mahadulei chavita de chamra. But b'shar yumei, if he wants to return it to me, I already missed the market day, then he can't return me a barrel of wine, because I'm only going to be able to get 4. So then mahadulei hey. Then he has to give me 5 denarii. But that's only if I didn't have any wine left to sell at market day. If I had wine, but I didn't go to the market, so then I would have had to sell my wine. And therefore, since I didn't go, it shows that I didn't miss anything from the market day, and then Marshall could just return me a barrel of wine. If he gives me the 5 denarii, then he has the right to deduct from that 5 denarii, he could deduct from it the tircha that it would cost for me to sell that barrel of wine. And so I'd have to stand and pour it out to buyers, so he has to deduct that from the 5 denarii. And also ubnei barznaisa. And also, if I had the barrel of wine, I would have to hire somebody to make, it was a specialty to make a proper spigot, to make a proper hole to pour out the wine. I don't have to hire that person now because I'm getting the cash. So then I save the money of the one that makes the opening. There is a different girsha over here, udmei karznaisa. Karznaisa comes from a lashon of kruz, a declaration. And it means I save the advertising. Right? Because now that I don't have to sell the wine, I don't have to advertise and put up signs that I have wine for sale, and therefore he could deduct it from the 5 denarii.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
What about the next market day?
No, the wine will get sour by then.
How often is market?
Enough that it's not feasible to save it to the next market day.
It's a complete hefset then.
Right.
Okay.
It's not a complete hefset because it could sell it for 4. Not a complete hefset.
Hefset of 1.
Right. Hefset of 1. All right. Now, Rabbi, so I did the Mishnah Yomers already. Now we're going to do the Chag. So I'm going to ask you for the green screen, and I'm going to ask Michal Avram see if there's a Mishnayos Menachos in the back.